Hi, sewing friends. It is me, T, and welcome to Sewing Thursdays with T. I want to let you know that if you are watching this video, there should be a follow button, and Kevin should be popping up here just a second to show you where to click to make sure that you always get to see me live. So today we're going to be talking about sergers and serger threads and rulers, and just a little tip that I received. So my serger was in the shop this week, and when I went to pick it up, I asked the sewing machine repair guy, oh, hi, Melissa, thanks for joining me. So as I was saying, I asked the sewing machine repair guy, what about the EloFlex from Coats & Clark? And what he actually told me was that a lot of the newer threads made from the different materials, he's finding they're actually gunking up people's machines. Hi, Karen. So if you were thinking about using the EloFlex, I'm not telling you one way or the other whether it will leave a residue in your sewing machine. He warned me against using it. I'm still going to try it out for you guys so I can talk about it, but I can't promise that that's the case. So if you are watching me here live, make sure that you like and share so that people can see, and keep in mind that the more comments that you leave here, the more people are going to see that. So we're just trying to break the Facebook algorithm a little bit here. So if you make sure that when you join, you just type in hi to me, that really helps. Oh, so Karen here is saying that she returned the EloFlex that she bought. And Karen, was there a reason why you returned, or you just decided it just wasn't worth it? I'd love to hear your opinion on that. As I'm waiting here to hear back from Karen, let's get started. So I know a lot of people buy a serger and then they leave it in a closet or in the box hidden away somewhere. So I'm going to try to give you a few little tips to help you get started and feel a little bit more comfortable with your machine. I may do a full-on serger video in the future, not today, but just a few little tips to get you started. So the best tip that I ever received when I was setting up my serger, and I'm going to try to get this focused in for you here, is that when you're testing out your serger, use 4 different colors of serger thread. So in this case, I have my black thread, which is my left needle, a white thread, which is my right needle. I have my upper loopers here, which is this pretty fun rainbow color. And then on the back, I used white for my lower looper. What is the purpose of doing this? So when you're trying to get your tensions right, if you can just look and say, oh, the white thread is too loose or too tight, then you can just go ahead and adjust that. But if you're trying to play with it and go, oh, is it the left needle? Is it the right needle? Is it the looper? Is it the upper looper, the lower looper? That can all be really confusing. But if you have 4 different colors, you can instantly look at it and say, oh, that color is wrong. And then you can look up at the threads that you have loaded in there, and then easy peasy, you know exactly which one to adjust. I do recommend that if you've just opened your serger and just got, oh no, I do hope the video didn't go out. It looks okay to me. That would be awful. All right, well, I hope people can still see me, and I'm still getting likes and shares. Okay, so Bjorg's still on, so I think we're okay. Natasha, I'm sorry that you lost me, and I don't know what to do to help you. Hopefully it's just your internet. So we're talking about sergers here, and so here's the thing. I see a lot of people ask, okay, well, I used my serger and I have this long chain left. Now what? So if that chain end is going to go into another seam, then all you have to do is add that seam and chop off this little end and serge right around it. That's going to secure your seam. There are 3 other ways, though, to finish your serger seams. One of them involves using some fray check and just putting a little dot there on your seams. This works great for anything that's going to be hidden or not worn, but I found that fray check can be a little scratchy, and so I don't like it against my skin. Another option is to separate out all the 4 threads from each other, which is pretty fast to do. You can do it with like a pin and just pick out each of the threads, and then they should come apart, and you can just tie a knot. I don't like tying knots. I don't know. It's like an extra step, and I don't like to separate out those threads. I don't like to leave knots in my fabric. So that doesn't work for me. What does work for me is this little tiny needle, and it is called a bodkin. And on the end of a bodkin is a nice dull end. So a bodkin is not used for sewing clothes together. It's using mostly for things like cross stitch, or you can use it to tuck in your serger seam. So I would take the bodkin and thread it back through that seam, tuck the threads through the eye. Now the eye is going to be nice and big, so it's really easy to tuck into that bodkin and just slide it right on through. Let me try to grab these there. Would probably work better if this wasn't my just little sample. And then all you have to do is trim those threads right there. That leaves no itchy, scratchy bump. Kelly here is saying that Fray Block is not as stiff as Fray Check, and I haven't tried to compare them. For the most part, I don't use them at all, but I just use a bodkin and tuck them back in. There is one more way to do this, and I learned it on a Sew by Pattern Pieces pattern. What she does is she sews all the way down the seam, then she very carefully removes it, so it would go this way, sorry. So she very carefully removes it, turns it back the other way, and serges back down the other side. And that will lock it in place. I always worry that I'm going to end up trimming off the edges of these threads when I go back the other way, and so it's not going to lock in as well. So that doesn't work for me. Melissa here is saying that she tried the Fray Check, but it didn't work well for her. So she threads hers back through. Hi, Shalini. So I really prefer using a bodkin. It makes sure that they are tucked down in there, not in your way. And that way you never have to worry about those threads again. They are not going to come out of there. So that is my favorite way to finish serger ends. Make sure that if you're checking tension, that you go ahead and use 4 different thread colors. If you're going to be using a stretch thread, then make sure that that's what you're using to check your tension, so that when you're good and done, everything is actually set up the way you need to, and you just re-thread with the colors that you need. All right, so I said we were going to talk about rulers, and I have rulers. I'm always losing my rulers, so I have like doubles of everything. So let's talk about my first ruler that I ever bought. And this is a 6x24 quilting ruler. Okay, so originally when I was learning to sew, I needed a quilting ruler to cut nice straight lines. And it works really well for if you need to cut rectangle pieces for kids' clothing like neckbands, and for women's clothing for neckbands. However, it's only 6 inches wide. So that can be a problem if you need to cut a 12-inch by something band, because then you have to turn it sideways and you're trying to maneuver all these different rectangles. But this was my very first ruler, and I love it for cutting neckbands. And I want to share something with you, and you might notice this little circle right here, and I will be sure at the end of the video that I share the link with you for these little circles. So it's just a little rubber sticker that you stick on the back, and then it just kind of provides a little bit of traction underneath your ruler so it doesn't slip. The biggest problem most people have with using quilting rulers is they tend to slip. So these little stickies mean that they don't slip. Let me read here what Natasha wrote. It says, I like the way Boo Designs do it in their skirts. They start 1 inch from the bottom of the unfinished hem, serge to the bottom, then turn upside down and serge back over it to the top. So Natasha, that's very similar to what Sew by Pattern Pieces does, but she just sews for about 2 inches and then trims it off. It seems like a lot of serging to me. I don't know, maybe I'm just lazy, but I feel like in that hem, when you're just going to turn it, you don't need to finish that edge, because your hem is going to tuck that inside the seam and it's never going to come out. So this was my first ruler. I love it. I use it all the time. It is my absolute favorite ruler. Now, I used to hate hemming, like hate with a capital H, like I never want to hem anything ever. And I know a lot of people hate hemming. And if you have one of those little adjustable rulers, they can be kind of a pain. But I love my 1-inch by 12-inch quilting ruler for hemming because you can see all the way through to the other side. So as whether you're pressing or doing a 1-inch hem or a 1/2-inch hem, you can see exactly how much is being taken up in that area. And the cool thing is that these little quilting dots come in circles and the little circle in the center comes out. I used those little dots on my 12-inch ruler so it would also be non-slip. So this is the ruler that I use for hemming, and I use it for all my hemming projects because if it's an inch or less, I can use this short side, and if it's longer, I can turn it and use the longer section. Occasionally, I'll find a pattern that uses a 3-inch hem, which is like, I love deeper hems. That hem adds a little bit of weight to the bottom and kind of helps your skirt from flying up. But so I love this 1-inch by 12-inch ruler. Somewhere in this house, I have a 1-inch by 6-inch ruler that is supposed to stay by my ironing board, but I keep losing it. So what can I say? I'm a little forgetful, but I have lots of rulers and I love rulers. Next up, this is my French curve ruler. And if you look closely, let's see if we can get it. You can see where I've broken it right here and right here and also over here. So my French curve is quite the bit worse for wear. Every seamstress who does any kind of adjustments to patterns needs a French ruler. Now, the metal rulers are going to be more stable, and you're not going to accidentally crack them like this. But I prefer a clear ruler because then I can better see the shape of what I'm trying to trace out. So if you're buying a French ruler and you don't want it to break, be more careful than me because I've dropped it on the floor and cracked it. I've stepped on it and cracked it, and let's not discuss why it was on the floor because it shouldn't have been there. So, and I actually think I actually cracked it on the way home from the store. So, and Karen here is asking me where I got my quilting rulers. So I believe I got them at Joann's probably. I don't know if wall whack would be cheaper. I usually buy them when I'm at a store and I'm like, I wish I had a blank insert ruler there, and then end up just buying one. It would probably be cheaper if you plan ahead, but this is one of those things where I usually don't think too much about it until I need it right now. I have bought rulers on Amazon though, and sometimes you can get a better deal on Amazon than you can at Joann's with the coupon. So my very last ruler, and this one is my new favorite, is this big one. And it is 8 by 14. And I like this because it's easier to get a big, like 12-inch cut line. Like this is the Hala Slim Dolman, and it uses a 12-inch band for the bottom. Oh, thank you, Wanda, for joining us. So the 12-inch band is a lot easier to cut if I have this bigger ruler with 12 inches, and then I can cut over and position it a little bit better. It's a little more stable than the 6 by 24. That doesn't make it necessarily a better ruler. It's just a different ruler, but I do have both of them. I use, so Natasha's saying that the OmniGrid rulers are supposed to have a grippy side. Mine don't have a grippy side, so I had to buy these little grippies. And like I said, I'm going to share a link for those, because after I bought them, it was like mind-blowing. And who thought that like a little sticker, a little rubber sticker would make a big difference, but it really does. So if you like, this is an OmniGrid, and these are the little grippies that I buy. I'm not sure if it's called an OmniGrip. So I don't know. If they have 2 types of rulers, I may be missing out. But if these are cheaper, and I think I paid $4 for like 100 of these little grippies, which I've only used like 15 of them, then that works out to being the right price for me. So these little grippies, life-saving. So I love cutting with a rotary cutter, and I will definitely have a video maybe next week talking about the rotary cutters I have and the different blades and how to get stuff like that. But for now, like, make sure that you have a good gridded ruler, because even though they're intended for quilting, they are so important when you're cutting out rectangles. And if you're sewing a pattern that has a center back seam and it's nice and straight, you can use your gridded ruler on top of your pattern piece to make sure that your hand doesn't waver. Okay, so Shalini is saying that the Omni grip rulers are green, and those are supposed to be non-skid. I haven't compared the pricing, so I don't know if it's just better to get an Omni grid and the little stickies, or to buy an Omni grip, and then you have the sticky side already built in. But if you just have regular quilting rulers that don't have a sticky side, you need these little stickies. And I can't emphasize that enough. It was completely like life-changing for me to have that when I was using my grid rulers. So those were the things that I wanted to talk about today, specifically about products. I want to give just a few notes here for you guys. So we are doing a support campaign for Itch to Stitch. If you didn't hear, her house was broken into. They took some of her things, went through her stuff, but most importantly, they took her sewing machine. And it's pretty low to steal somebody's sewing machine. Like, who does that? But they did. And so we are running a support campaign. 10% of all of our sales from this past Monday through the end of the month are going straight to Kenneth to help her get a new machine. And so the coupon code that'll get you 5% off is ITSLOVE, which stands for Itch to Stitch Love. And that's 5% off for you, and then 10% of all orders go to Kenneth. Okay, so other things that are important that we need to talk about. We are like down to the last like 2 yards of black double brush poly. And I tried to order some more through my distributor, and she won't have any in until mid-November. So if you need black double brush poly, it's not going to be until mid-November that we get that in. I did update the shop with a denim poly rayon French terry, and it does have spandex in it, and it is super awesome, and it has fabulous drape. I originally did not add it to the last pre-order round because I thought nobody would want it because it wasn't for pants, but apparently people do want it, because you can make sweatshirts and things. It's a beautiful color. It has fabulous drape. And even though it is poly rayon, it doesn't feel like poly. It has that texture like rayon and soft drape. The poly helps it from pilling as much. So even though you might normally steer away from a poly spandex, the poly rayon is kind of the best of both worlds. And then last up, I know a lot of people are still waiting on their fuchsia double brush poly orders. The one that we got in has all these little black pin dots on it. And I know a lot of people have been ordering it as muslin fabric. It is in the shop for $3 a yard. There is a limit of 7 yards because at that point we can no longer afford to ship it for you at the $8.99. But you are welcome to order several sets of 7 yards, as long as you're willing to pay that $8.99 shipping, because that's our breaking point on that product. That basically has us shipping it to you at cost to us. So the good fuchsia double brush poly will be here next week. Remember that if you're watching this video, you need to hit follow so that you make sure that you do not miss me next week, because of course we'll be talking about new fabulous sewing things. I want to let you know that I will not be going live on Thanksgiving Day, so don't think that you're going to miss me, because I won't be here. I will be eating a ton of turkey and feeling like I overate, because I probably did. And I just want to remind you that we are doing that support campaign for Itch to Stitch, but you can also go over to her shop. All of her patterns are discounted right now, and I cannot speak highly enough about her drafting. I made, I believe the pattern is called Beau Soleil. I don't know. I'm not good with the pronunciation. But I made that pattern. All I did was make my length adjustments, and it fit perfectly the first time. So that almost never happens to me, but it did happen. So I can't recommend her shop enough. Go support her. And thank you for joining me. We'll be back next week.